it's opening night, and you haven't seen it either, have we? That event, that story that everyone is talking about online right now. It's a gala. It's an epic. It's Hollywood at its most mysterious, because of course you should have already know this story, right? Why would we make a movie of a great classic? In fact, if everybody didn't already know it already, and that creates certain difficulties for us as storytellers, doesn't it? If you assume that everybody knows the story, well, you can be more artsy with it, right? Can you just be elusive and elusive mainly? Why are we so certain that everybody should know this story? Why is it that Homer's The Odyssey has captured Christopher Nolan's attention so much so that all of the preview viewers of Hollywood are out in force saying about how this is a great work of art? Why do we think that? Welcome to the Mosaic Arc. Okay, so this is the question that is on everybody's mind. Matt Slotnick on X. The most confusing part of the Odyssey is how this took 10 years. Map from Troy to Ithaca. It's only 3 hours. Why should that take 10 years? And it's over land too. I thought we were doing ships here. Yes.
Are we sure this is a joke, or is this like a note from some Hollywood meeting?
Well, the joke, of course, I mean, okay, it's like, you have layers of joke, right? It's like, I often wonder about, like, why does the Odyssey take so long? Part of it is, of course, he's trapped on the island with Calypso for 7 years. He's not traveling around the whole time. So,
Right.
if you're mapping it out, some of it is because, in fact, the journey it's not all journey. Some of it's being held hostage by the sea nymph, right? Which should mean that actually, if she's Calypso, we're in Pirates of the Caribbean territory, right? But the big mystery is, why in New York, upstate New York, are there places called Troy and Ithaca?
Or places called Athens in Georgia.
or Paris in Texas, but specifically Troy to Ithaca, right? That you can make the journey. Why it's in kilometers rather than miles, I don't know. But anyway, that you can make the journey from Troy to Ithaca overland in 3 hours and 1 minute by car. And I did look those up, right? They're named in the late 18th century. Upstate New York. I've been reading a lot about upstate New York because of the 7 Years' War and the Battle of Lake Champlain and things like that. And so actually I've been looking at Oswego on the maps, because you could say maybe it took 7 years it could take 7 years because that's how long the wars in upstate New York. But that's a little obscure, don't you think? Why would you name towns Troy and Ithaca? Except for the obvious reason that you expected everybody to like the names already. So we're like that we're in this situation where the only reason, and I will say this, of the variety of reviews that I've seen about the Odyssey, and everybody flip the script, because we're always flipping everything these days. Nolan wanted to make a movie of the Odyssey, obviously, because the Odyssey is already famous. Duh. Right? It's like,
and it's a fairly recent remake, because it was done like 26 years ago. right?
I don't
That
know.
was the Brad Pitt.
I've been catching up on my Jurassic Park and realizing I've missed all of Sam Neill, R.I.P. I have missed all of the last 25 years as far as I can tell, right? It's like there's movies out there that came out. If it wasn't Lord of the Rings, I don't know it.
I do watch a lot of movies.
You'll have to catch me up, right?
I know, and I think Mel watches a lot of movies too. So I think you got a lot of suggestions from the both of us.
Well, this is good. This is good. But okay, so 25 years ago there was a Troy, right, with Brad Pitt. I'm vaguely aware of that one. But the point being, it's like, and this is of course why there's all the brouhaha about it. Is this is a story everybody knows, and so everybody's going to the movie to test how well Nolan tells the story that everybody knows, right?
Or staying away from it because people love the story so much that they don't like it being mutilated because of some ridiculous rules that were set forth by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
Right.
This checklist or you're not getting any nominations, and he wants nominations, and it's very cynical. I don't like it, and I'm not going to watch it because of that. Just because of that alone. I mean, the casting was, there's so many problems with it. I mean, it's almost with one glaring exception we don't need to mention because everybody knows what it is. It's almost the least of the problems here. It's because he doesn't seem to respect the source material or the love people have for this story. Like he filmed it in Greece. He took money from the Greek government. There's not a Greek in this movie, and it's a story that's important to a lot of people, but particularly to them. So
to the Greeks, right? It's in it. The story is spoiler alert. The story is originally written in Greek.
Yes. Yeah.
I bet most people now don't read it in Greek. I've read pieces of. I did do ancient Greek in college. I did do Latin in high school, and we read a lot of the Aeneid. But ancient Greek, even for Latin nerds, is still a little bit further out there. So I can't say that I know Homeric Greek terrifically well. I did the not humble brag, just silence the haters. I did study Byzantine Greek, and I did read the entirety of George Pacidius's account of the Virgin saving Constantinople in Greek. So there. However, okay, so it's in Greek. I think they actually filmed a lot of it in Africa, though. I think in the desert I saw some online upsetness saying
they didn't film everything in Greece. But they did show up there. And I want to read something really quick because it's right in line with what we're talking about. So, Alexander Pope, I'm sorry, I got the right name. He translated the Odyssey into English, the first one to do it. Right?
No.
Who was the first one?
Chapman.
Okay. So the one we were reading was Pope's, but there's an introduction to it written in about 1850, somewhere around there.
The 1853 edition is very important because it comes with pictures. There's some fancy pictures that go with it.
Listen to this introduction, okay? For whom was a written Iliad necessary? He's talking about writing. He said, not for the rhapsodies, for with them it was not only planted in the memory, but also interwoven with the feelings and conceived of in conjunction with all those flexions and intonations of voice, pauses, and other oral artifices which were required for emphatic delivery. Only the Greeks can do this justice. So, and it continues, I ground this supposition on charge then that operated in the character and tendencies of Grecian poetry and music. The elegiac the iambic measures having been introduced as rivals to the primitive hexameter. This sounds like a lot of gobbledygook to a lot of people, but what he's basically saying is it's changed just because you wrote it down and translated. It's somewhat changed because a lot of the story is based on a feeling. And this is such a powerful story that people who don't even read it in Greek have very powerful memories of it and opinions about it. Mm-hmm. The movie apparently opens with some rapper rapping because that's poetic. I don't disagree that that's poetic.
Here's Homer. I have pictures, right? Here's Homer rapping it.
Yeah.
With his lyre.
Right. But not in anything that would have been understood emotionally by the Greeks. What I'm trying to say is, I think even with a good translation onto film or onto the page, there's going to be a lot lost just because you're taking it outside of its original language and culture. And
you mean we're appropriating it?
Yeah.
Have we appropriated Homer?
It wasn't even acknowledged in this one, apparently. And the Greeks hold the Greek internet is pretty pissed off, and I don't blame them.
Nobody reads this in Greek except the Greeks, and it's no. And,
right. I wish I could. That's what I'm saying. I wish I could, because something must have been lost in this already, just from the translation. And then to say,
I see what you're saying.
Let's just take liberties with it anyway, right?
Well, and so VA is saying, how can Hollywood assume everyone knows the story when Western culture has been demonized and thrown in the corner, if not the trash, for years as we celebrate not having a shared culture? There is some of the irony, right? It's like, the heavy irony being, obviously, the pre-release previews and hype and 5-star reviews that came out before it opened today. So a few people have seen it. Totally
legitimate, I'm sure.
Yeah. It only works if you actually already care about the story in the first place. So if you hype a new set of characters, which, as we've established in various conversations, nobody ever does. King Arthur, anyone? We're going to do that one next. Jesus. Most of the time you're taking a story that people have previously known and saying, here, we're going to do a version of it that you will now enjoy. And it relies on you already knowing the story. But what I was saying at the outset is, Chris, as far as I can tell from the reviews that I have been reading and watching today, Christopher Nolan is absolutely relying on you already knowing the story, because he barely introduces anything, apparently, right? It's like it's
a convenient excuse for a shortcut, isn't it?
It's a 3 hours long movie, so my guess on having just watched enough obsessive, since my dog died and I have nobody to take me outdoors anymore, and right now, because it's dangerous to go outdoors in Chicago, I'm not outdoors. That I'm catching up on all this. Like, I watched Ryan Gosling in that remake, Blade Runner, right?
Oh, the other one.
And then I watched Hail Mary Project, and I know from Blade Runner and the way they made it, and also seeing Dune, and like I think I'm getting the vibe, right, about the way big, important, pretentious. I've seen Dune. We did talk about Dune.
Okay, it can be done, but it can't be done in one shot like Nolan tried to do. It's like when Peter Jackson, approached the studio and said, I want to do Lord of the Rings. I said, great. He said, it needs to be 3 movies. I said, pardon? But he said, it can't do it in one movie. It just can't be done justice. And a lot of people who love the book say they didn't do it justice anyway. But as a film project, definitely it needed 3 movies. You could do this with the Odyssey in multiple movies too. But if you're going for rage bait, just do it in one.
Well, the rage bait, I'm sorry, I'm not making myself clear. The rage bait only works if people already know the story. And
right. I think the people complaining are the ones that do know the story.
Well, but this is ironic, since, of course, you would think that, okay, the reason they're complaining is because they're worried that people are going to see Nolan's movie and not know the story already, and be swayed by his version of it to think that's the true story. When, of course, the effect of all of this is, Nolan only took on this art project because he assumed people already cared about the story in the first place, ironically. So he's not actually...
That's the rage bait.
I know, but he's not actually doing it to give you it's one of the YouTubers. I'll have to look her up just a second. Because I was listening to her review a second ago. Emily Butler points out, she did watch the whole thing, and she points out in her review of it that none of the characters have any sufficiently extended dialogue for you to have any idea who they are or what they're. It's like it's all allusions and references to characters you apparently already know. It's like it's not a story of itself. It's already a footnote to your.
So he wanted to make an art project, an art house movie.
Yes.
With a huge budget.
Yes. And my sense of it was and I was thinking this before I even watched her description of it, is it's like a long music video or I think I went this out there on the internet as Rachel said it, like watching a Rothko painting to a cello soundtrack. Very slow. Although, everything's cello music these days, and sorry, I'm not hating on the cello. I'm just I just noticing the preponderance.
It's very mournful.
It's always mournful. There's always, it's like long, and none of the shot. Guys know what Rothko paintings are, right? There's a Damon Eale chapel in Houston, which I saw when I was in college, right? It's like Rothko paintings have nothing but color, like no shapes, no details or anything like that. And all I've seen in the clips that are playing out there on the internet are, if they're human figures against sand or something like that.
Yeah, it's like the big smoke you're seeing right now.
Like the smoke in Chicago, where you
muted.
have everything's very muted. There's nothing. It's just, and that's all the Villeneuve aesthetic that both Dune and Blade Runner used is, the sets are nothing but giant like blocks of color with mood lighting.
That makes sense for those stories.
And cello music in the background. Which it sounds to me like what Nolan is going for. It's an art project based on something people already know the story for. And if you don't know the story, spoiler alert, you're going to be super confused. She was saying, Butler was saying stuff about, she read, I'm sorry, Emily, I did like your review, that she's read the Odyssey back in 8th grade, which is probably not as long ago for her as it is for us. And she doesn't remember it necessarily, but Nolan was doing all these strange things about cutting with backflashes and, that's actually the way it's written, which some of the comments in her video are saying. It's like it opens with, Odysseus on Calypso's island. So apparently that's where the movie starts. So it's, if Nolan wanted to do like complicated time frame shifts and stuff, that's in the poem. That's already there. But you wouldn't know that. It's like maybe what he's doing is a really, I don't think this, but you could say he's doing a very faithful art adaptation of the art, but nobody's going to know it because, oh wait, nobody knows the poem. Or do they?
Including the actors.
Well, I don't. Yes, including the one who you posted this. Victor David Hansen did a discussion of it, and he had a clip of the actress playing Helen talking about
Lupita Nyong'o. Yeah. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing her last name.
Apparently went to Yale, as far as he's suggesting.
She went to Yale. She got a Master of Fine Arts
at
and
Yale.
Has never read it. Yes.
Did it? I mean, so, you can get through a lot of education in this country at various levels
sure
and not
can,
have
but
read
you're not
it.
going to get me impressed. But you're not going to get me impressed with you because I read it in a third-rate public university.
That's not my point.
Gets a Master of Fine. She gets a Master of Fine Arts from Yale. She should have read this.
No, she was cast as Helen. She should have read it. I mean, really.
I care more about her education than this movie. I got to be honest.
I care more about the fact you're given this role. Why don't you go read the book? Right? It's like why wouldn't you read the book? It's very, but maybe she doesn't know Greek, right?
Okay, look,
so
you don't want to read the book in translation. Fine. You don't. I don't read Greek. I don't speak Greek. You don't want to read the book. That's fine. You don't go and start pontificating about how Homer was wrong and you'd really like to correct him when you haven't even read it.
Well, okay, but this being the sort of tragedy of this whole scenario, right? On the one hand, we have, and as you were reading from that introduction, right? So in fact, what he's saying there is, I think whatever we have transcribed, never mind in translation, even just the transition from oral to written, whatever we have written down as Homer, probably what this guy was saying, whose name I don't remember because I have no idea who he is, because why would I? I don't do classics. That Homer, when he was reciting it himself, it probably was even more amazing than this pathetic, thinned down version that we have written out in ancient codices. And I didn't look this up. The oldest manuscripts of everything ancient tend to be medieval. So whatever, but that we have whatever written version we have of the poem that Homer presumably performed. This guy's saying he's writing in the 1850s. He's a romantic, right? He's going to say that performance had things that we can't hope to capture in our print.
Well, maybe.
Oh, I probably very definitely. And then Nolan would be someone who'd come along and say, well, okay, we can't capture the print version. We need to bring it back to life. We need to, and that's why he has that rapper guy at the beginning, I assume. We need to, imagine this the way in which it was performed for, the audiences in the prehistoric time of whenever we imagine Homer was writing. Troy 7A in terms of the Schliemann archaeology, I guess. There's layers of Troy, and when this actually is written down, you think dating Beowulf is hard, right? I think dating Homer is its own game as well. So I haven't done that one.
So I think they took a shot at dating it here. Let's see.
Reminding that's the 1850s,
right? That it was a
scholarship.
Right in the 1850s. He's writing about the scholarship, right? And the scholarship had said that it was. Let's see. Sorry, my copious notes are in no way arranged in any way. It's about 300 years older than they think when it was written down, and about, I don't know, was it 500 BC, 630 BC, something like that.
The problem always with these things, it's like the Beowulf. You'll have a written copy of it that's much more recent, and then the language, the way the philology tests things in terms of the text that we can date from in other ways. You look at the language history in this text, and
which is what they were doing,
and then you're trying to back project. How far back do you go? And Schliemann, when he was doing the excavations in the 19th century and found Troy, right, he found the site, right. He had thought, he had the idea even to look that there was a real place. Never mind that it wasn't in New York, right? There was that Troy wasn't just a fictional location. That there was actually a city that probably was. That's what Hansen refers to when he's saying there's probably a memory of an actual Mycenaean attack on Asia Minor. Somewhere in the background, probably, and the story grows up around it.
I mean, there are stories in here in this country about enormous earthquakes, enormous tsunamis that they then found geological evidence for,
right?
And they're thousands of years old, and those stories lasted that long. So you have a big traumatic event like that, people are going to pass it down in stories,
right? And say again who the author of that introduction is. It's
this is going to bug me. Hold on.
So guys, what she's reading from is the Project Gutenberg.
Yeah,
online
it's the introduction. Yeah. I wrote this.
So John Abrisi says, there you go. In one of my murder studies, I've written about Ithaca, an old suburb of Brisbane. Now Paddington and Barden. Even a poem. Here we go. Yeah. So there's an Ithaca. So and this being my point, which is the joke about the we've got these place names in North America that refer to this story, but the Indians, the people that were living up there, the Iroquois and the people that they displaced, they weren't reading Homer, were they? Right. So these are. No, it's funny, right? It's like there's a no place
there's a conspiracy in here somewhere,
right? There's a no place where Odysseus nobody lived somehow. Get that joke, the Cyclops joke, and yet there's somehow Homer, who was performing these poems. Probably, I don't know where the scholarship is on whether there was actually Homer right now. Was he a real poet? Was there just a tradition? Who knows? I don't know. It goes back and forth, whether there was whether the name is attached to the poems, and there's two different authors, or there's multiple authors, or it's a storytelling tradition that just accumulates. I don't know where they are in that particular debate right now, but that somehow this particular story, however it got transmitted into writing, in writing, has then been transmitted to us, such that now we're convinced it's super famous and everybody should know it. And so it's worth Christopher Nolan's while to make a movie of it as an art project, because it will have this big effect, because consider this painting that I'm showing you. Everybody loves art, that's high. And I think Nolan is aiming for the same kind of movie that these paintings are aiming at, which is
that's fine. But
Academy
then don't go out
art.
and say you want to make it accessible to people. And that's why you're using
what's
words
accessible?
like dad and daddy instead of father, and using a rapper. And it's like, I just want to smack them. Stop condescending to people. Yes, bring the story to them. If you wanted to update it, that would have kind of been a more interesting art project, to maybe put it in a modern day context in some way. But if you're going to say,
the Coen brothers already did that. So
yeah, they did. It was fun.
Oh, Brother, where art thou was great, right? Yes, and the music is really fun. And it totally works.
The Cyclops in that was perfect. It worked perfectly.
Sorry, Nolan. They did it too.
Yeah. It's fine if you want to do that, but then don't turn around and say that you're making it accessible, because you're not. What you're doing is you're obscuring it and making people think it's something it isn't. And there's a whole lot of stuff left out. You couldn't put the whole thing in one movie. It had to be multiple movies if you're going to do it right. So I'm not going to say he's lying.
Well, but I am saying that his gambit only works if the story's already super famous. And what I'm trying to get everyone to think about, and I do this because I'm like so tediously professor. Why is it so super famous? Like this is what's funny about fame, that people regularly think of it as a kind of given. It's like, well, of course it's famous. It's the thing I read in school. Well, yeah. And certainly, I mean, so I've been having this meditation on how hard it is to be a convert. It's like I grew up Christian. So guys, I've always been Christian, but that I've only been Catholic since 2017, even though I spent all this time since college learning the history of the church. And, I know more about medieval devotion to Our Lady than most of the people on the planet. Just cause, right? And in terms of knowing the medieval sources and what they're arguing. But I don't have a sort of deep grounded conviction of the trueness of certain things, like, oh, Mary gave Dominic the rosary, because there's no medieval stories of that until the 15th century, which cripples me in a certain, it's like fundamental way of the just truth level, right? And I think people are reacting to Nolan's use of the Odyssey at this just truth level because, interestingly enough, it is a story that a lot of them still have read in school. And there's always this problem when you assign stories to kids, get them when they're young enough, and they don't actually think about where it came from. It's just there. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Here Gulliver's Travels, right? We read Gulliver's Travels in ninth grade, and ninth grade is starting to be a time when you're almost sort of aware of there's a history behind these things. But eighth grade, we read Dickens. I'm not sure I was, there's a certain moment when you suddenly start being aware of, like, wait a minute, this came to me through this transmission, and that's why I have it. Rather than just it is the story is. But I think when Homer, whoever he was, is reciting the story, that's what your preface author is thinking about. It's like, what was this like when it just was the story? It's just the story that you heard. It's just there. You get to sit around the bard, and he's going to recite the story. Here it is. I'm going to tell you the story. And all storytellers wish that our stories had that level of immediacy.
Well, it's still a good story, written down, or if it's an original and translated into English. I mean, it's a really good story.
Yeah, but do you want to I think your frustration with Nolan is not just that it's a good story. I think it feels like it's something more than just, this is a cool story that I like.
Well, it does feel like he's kind of like rating it, plundering it.
Here's Venus handing over Helen to Paris, like that. He's
No,
taking Helen
worse.
and stealing her from Menelaus and handing her over to this playboy who can gallivant with her back off to Troy after abusing Menelaus's hospitality, and he runs off with his wife. So we're gonna have to go.
It's worse than that. It's worse than that. It's he's plundering Odysseus's palace and trying to take Penelope while he's gone, while nobody's looking, while nobody's there.
Nolan is one of the suitors. That's an interesting take. I had not seen that coming. Yeah. Okay. So it feels. I mean, this is the irony of the story that we're playing with, right? Is the story that we're the backstory of the backstory of Odysseus is in fact not in the Iliad either. The rape of Helen. That it's taking something that belongs to somebody else, Menelaus's wife, and running off with her. So Nolan has raped.
Well, yeah, from the Greek perspective, from Greek internet, yes, that's exactly how they feel right now. It's like they've been plundered, yeah, and their treasure carried off, and then they're not even acknowledged where the treasure came from, which is their culture, because it's a big part of their culture. It's their
now it is. I'm sure they read it in school.
Yeah, it's their foundational myth. Yeah.
Okay, so they're Christian. How is this their foundational myth?
Because their history goes way further back than Christianity, and they know it, and they never gave up those parts of their culture.
Except for we don't know who Homer was.
Well, according to the intro, he might have just meant blind, and there could have been many Homers, just like there were many Shakespeares.
Well, this is the problem, right?
Thing in the 19th century.
Oh, it's massively a thing in the 19th century. Yeah. Yes, and what I'm also playing with is there are ways in which I this is funny. Okay, guys, just you got to go start looking all this stuff up. I don't know Homer studies in the same way I know Beowulf studies, but there's a problem when you start saying this was their national myth. How long has Greece been a nation?
You mean a single nation? Because Greek, I mean, there were many nations that were Greek, right? But I think what were they first? They first. Sorry, I'm struggling to find the word I'm looking for here. Combined into one nation under Philip of Macedon, right? I think it goes back pretty far. I mean, they've split up and got back together many times over.
I don't know what happened. What happened? Actually, all of this is so topical. If I can steer you, if I can take you Odysseus-like past the sirens of modern Hollywood to the reveal at the end on exactly why we think that this belongs to who it does. So these paintings, right? These great paintings that are all from the late 18th, early 19th century. So here, this is the rape of Helen. She's being handed over to Paris. Here is Achilles mourning the death of Patroclus, right? These are completely historically accurate paintings.
Not a girl, by the way, but anyway, go on.
What, Achilles is not a girl, no. And Patroclus is very pale in this picture because he's dead.
Well, he's dead.
Patroclus probably Achilles' lover in some ways, but of course Achilles is mad because Briseis has been taken from her. So he also wants his slave girls. Very complicated. I wonder if Lupita read this. I don't
think so.
Well, I mean, so the really, do you realize that you as Helen ran off with somebody, you're an adulteress? Are you really going to own that part of the story? I don't know. I mean, she's beautiful and all, but do you really want to be the one that ran off with the playboy who wasn't even a great warrior, right? Paris seems to spin the story hiding in the, behind the walls of Troy, letting his brother take all the heat. Excuse me. Right. If we're getting in characters here, Paris is not the hero of the story at all. He's the playboy who runs off with another man's wife. And she goes with him. This is it's like by the time they rescue
how ironic
they rescue Helen and give her back to Menelaus. She's been living with Paris for a decade.
I know it's not. I was making a joke.
It's so right. Okay. So, but these completely historically accurate paintings show them in contemporary dress in totally undramatic pictures.
Contemporary dress, robes.
I'm waiting for the chat to help me. Actually, the chat's been quite lively. Hello, Kudra. Oh, well, V.A. Boston saying C.S. Lewis spoke about not appreciating learning Greek until he could read the Greek poets. But why was an Irish kid studying England in the early 1900s learning Greek? Right. Gnarly Bird saying Nolan Protestantized it.
Well, it's already pagan, so.
No, I'm not. Gnarly Bird, you have to explain that more. My book's author's note says that Pope thought Homer was an Augustine. Okay, you're going to have to elaborate, Gnarly Bird, because these are elusive. These are not historically accurate paintings, guys. If you think these are historically accurate, why are ancient Greek heroes being depicted in Parisian Academy classicizing? Here's Hector saying goodbye to Andromache. Here's Andromache mourning the death of Hector. That's Paris's brother, whom he gets killed because of hiding behind the walls. And I like this one this is quite painful of Andromache, with her dead husband, who's been killed by Achilles and dragged around the walls of the. It's not a nice story, guys.
No.
These, but look, just everybody look at these paintings. Are you looking at them and assuming that they're historically accurate? Please say no. If you were sitting there thinking they're historically accurate, why do you think that?
Hollywood.
They're not painted by Hollywood.
No, I know that, but when Hollywood started making these epics, they went back to the paintings for inspiration on dress and clothing and settings. And
this is a fair point. So the sword and sandals movies of the mid 20th century look back to 19th, 18th, and 19th century paintings to be accurate. Wait a minute. Mm-hmm. Exactly what are we talking about here? I mean, in fact, the only way that you can make this historically accurate in terms of depiction would be to do like Disney's Hercules and do it with vase paintings. But most of those vase paintings survive in Etruscan tombs, so your mileage may vary, right? But the first level here is this sort of our feeling of it being historically accurate and of wanting to be in the stories and then feeling like we already know the stories. We're looking not just these paintings are from about the same time as Ithaca and Troy were named in New York, right? They're 1790s or thereabouts. So what do you think Homer would have thought of these paintings?
I don't think he would have recognized them.
Remember the meta question there that I forgot that I was asking is, when was Greece a nation? Which is a kind of trick question.
It's a bit of a trick question. I mean, the people didn't change, the borders did.
Over and over again. Let me say this again. When was Greece a nation?
Define it, nation.
Aha! She finally got it. Define nation. We've talked about this a lot, actually.
Well, a nation is a people.
Okay, fine. When was Greece a nation? As opposed to Athens or Sparta or Corinth or... You
mean like Pan-Hellenic? Is that what you mean?
Well, or, Philip of Macedon was not king of Greece. I mean, maybe, I don't know. Grycia is a peninsula. It's like, when was Italy a nation?
Yeah.
When was Italy a nation?
18 something.
There you go.
Because that's true that's very true for Italy, because they were, and I mean,
it's the same for Greece.
I don't know enough about Greece. I'm assuming they had less.
When they did these paintings,
but maybe they had more.
When they did these paintings, who was in charge of Greece?
Oh, the British.
Nope.
No,
not yet.
18th century.
Yeah, in the 1790s, who's in charge of Greece?
Oh, the Ottoman Turks.
Yep.
Yeah.
There are so many layers of fictionalizing going on in our conviction that we know exactly what Homeric stories looked like and meant. And one layer is the same layer that we always have to go through when we deal with these kinds of things. It's the 19th century nationalism projects. So,
right.
Lord Byron, who's not he's writing all of this like a romantic poetry and stuff in the 1820s and 30s, right? The early 19th century. The Romantics, like your guy writing that preface, imagining romantically how Homer sang these songs. This is that the Greeks now use Homer as this kind of national epic. They have to do it because of Greek independence. Right? It's like, it's this, my guess is it's going to be the same kind of thing that made the Song of Roland the French national epic, that made Beowulf the Anglo-Saxon English national epic, that made the Nibelungenlied the German national epic. These are all 19th century phenomenon of imagination.
Hey, when's the last time you saw a movie about the Nibelungenlied or whatever it was? I don't know how to pronounce it.
If you've listened to Wagner.
No.
Well, Wagner is writing the operas off of the Nibelungenlied, and he's doing it in this same. So Nolan, whatever his like music video version, you could say he's the modern Wagner, right? He's trying to Wagnerize Homer in the same way that Wagner romanticized the Nibelungenlied and make it accessible to modern audiences, which includes making it like stormy and romantic and discordant.
Okay,
and,
well,
and all of those sorts of things.
maybe to the Germans. It's slightly different now, though. I mean, you're doing this in English. That's like half the world speaks it and can watch it in a movie.
Well, then who does it belong to?
First language.
This is our. So the thing is, I do take seriously that the Greeks are upset, but they're coming to this poem in much the same way we are, through layers of modernity that give it a particular kind of significance that. So in medieval Europe, they don't have Homer. They have the Iliad, they have the Aeneid, and they read Virgil obsessively. They know about the existence of the Homeric stories, but they don't get translations of these poems until somewhat late in the Middle Ages. And the English get a translation of it with Chapman in the 16th century. It's 1500s or thereabouts. It's sometime in the 1500s that they get the Chapmans, and then there's a romantic poem called "On First Looking into Chapman's Homer," which is Keats looking back on the earlier translation. It's got this level in English, but all of this is this sort of fictionalizing of what the story meant in antiquity versus what it's meant in modernity. Modernity layers all sorts of baggage, expectation, nuance, not even nuance. I would say like sober. There's a ponderousness to what I'm trying to find. We don't let these things be good stories because they're coming to us with so many layers of this matters already. And the 19th century, the Romantics in the 19th century are very largely responsible for a lot of that. It's the same with Shakespeare.
Well, maybe in English speaking world, I'm not sure about Greece because I don't know. I mean, yeah, I get that nationalism was spreading in the 19th century all over Western Europe and maybe even parts of South America at the time. But I'm not sure that you could say this wasn't an important story to them. More that until nationalism, because that idea itself might have been part of Western European nationalism when they were spreading these stories and reviving them, so to speak.
Right, but the Greece exists as a nation in the same way Italy and Germany do. It's a modern entity. Ancient Greece was Troy and Corinth and Athens. They were city-states. And they were often at war with each other.
Yes,
Athens and Sparta, famously.
By somebody who was of a different Hellenic state.
Right, but these are little bitty states that are at war with each other all the time, which is the whole point of the story. Like Troy, Ithaca, right? Yeah. The reason Odysseus needs to get back to Ithaca is it's his property. Like that's his state. He doesn't belong to Greece. He belongs to Ithaca. So, and it's true that when the Athenians, make a league to go up against the Persians, they end up with this kind of Greek identity, thanks to Herodotus. But then they end up in the civil war that Thucydides describes of Athens and Sparta at war with each other. When Philip of Macedon takes over, he takes over all of these like local places. And then, and then Alexander makes the great, his great empire. Well, what is that? Greece, right? Is all of Greece, Persia and Egypt and such, because Alexander conquered it.
Well, it was considered Greek, yes. But I mean, was it under one ruler? No.
But this is my point, right? That a large part, the reason that Nolan thinks this story is important in the way that he does, with the gravitas, that's what I was looking for, the gravity that he does, is because he's feeding off of the 19th century's romanticizing of the significance of all of these stories, just like the rest of us are. Does that not make sense?
I think you might be giving him too much credit.
I don't think he's doing it consciously. I think he's relying on that.
He's relying upon that to make his movie popular, or
that's why he picked it to do. That's why he wanted to do an art movie. So just like these painters who wanted big, significant scenes to paint because they wanted to show off as painters, and they wanted to, have, powerful scenes of suffering and trauma, and, they picked these scenes because it already had that feeling for them, right? They're not picking, does that, I'm still not, if you don't get it, nobody does.
No, I do get what you're saying. I'm just too cynical to think that that's what's going on with him.
Well, he doesn't need to know it. He doesn't need to know that that's what's happening. I'm saying that is what people rely on. That's why there's gazillion, it's like Hollywood, right? So the irony, Dark Carol did a nice job of this. Hollywood needs this movie to be big and important.
Why?
Because they're showing off their art. Right? They need it to be big and important, just like the painters of these Academy style paintings needed these scenes to be significant. They might as be painting
They're
Napoleon.
Looking for legitimacy?
Yes.
From who?
Well, who?
Themselves?
The public, clearly, or I mean, I don't know who's the audience. And when they did these paintings,
we know who the audience is.
When they did these paintings in the late 18th century. They are, painting themselves. It's the world of the American Revolution, of the surveyors who are naming those places in New York, of, the Enlightenment. All this is the reality of the Enlightenment is in the culture that needs these stories to be big and important in the way that we apparently still believe they are, because Nolan did this movie.
Well, it is, as it turns out, but maybe it's not the reaction he was hoping for, or it was.
I think he's getting exactly the reaction he was hoping for. So V.A. Boston saying ethnic Greek outfits have a lot of influence from the Turks. Yeah, the strangest feeling I had the first time I went to Athens, I was in high school back in 81, and the guards around the various monuments are in these little skirts. Those big pleated skirts. I'm like, what are they wearing? That doesn't look like a toga, right? They were
hoping for togas. That's so cute.
I was hoping for, but modern Greece is Byzantine and Ottoman, and there's precious little, except for in the monuments for tourists that the British were really interested in, that focuses on the ancient world. The British are the ones who really make that a big deal, as well as, the British really do it.
That's the neoclassicism that inspired these paintings, right?
Yes, that's it. That's exactly it. If you go to Greece expecting to find Homer, you're going to find a lot of images of the Theotokos. V.A. Boston saying, I've seen a good bit looking at clothing ideas from Greek and Byzantine fashions for my novels, right? Colleen, modernity idolizes the past and gives it more gravitas, like how we think white marble statues of Roman Greece should be painted. Yes, exactly. Look at these. I mean, I love how Patroclus looks like a statue in this painting, right? He's so white and marble-like in his death that he might as well be a statue. John Abrisi saying, as I said, the Greek poet Constantine Cavafy famously reinterpreted Odyssey's core premise in his 1911 poem, Ithaca. Instead of focusing on Odysseus' heroic return, Cavafy transforms the epic into a philosophical metaphor for the human journey of life. But in 1911, right, that fits with poetry in the symbolic period, which we should know. Okay, Gnarly Bird saying, Nolan sounds like a reformer. From Casey's description, it sounds like it is stripped down from the glory that it once conveyed. Colleen saying Nolan making big budget fan art. What we're I'm just
that's a good way to put it.
I'm trying to break down for everyone the real like you if you want the feeling of gravitas that you feel like Nolan has destroyed with the dad and the rap and things like that. To us it comes through the 19th and the 18th, 19th, the 18th and 19th centuries romanticizing of these stories for reasons that hold in modernity. And I had not thought to think about this in terms of the Greek independence, but Greece's independence from the Ottomans, they do, that's why Byron goes and fights there and dies in Greece for reasons that I'm not really terribly clear about because I don't really read Byron yet. But
I think he was a true believer in their cause.
He was a true believer in their cause.
Funny enough.
He definitely was. And that's, the origin, this 19th century, search for our people, right? And you have to do it philologically, so you have to do it with your languages, and you're going to want an epic. And the Greeks do, win because they get the oldest one. But the feeling of it as this is ours in this particular way, and it belongs to us because it's in our language, which, of course, we're not reading in Greek. So the whose is it problem, why are these places in upstate New York named Troy? Does it belong to New York? Where is that coming from? Dun, dun, dun. Oh, look, here's a woman laughing at a man. So, does everyone know who the woman is? Just say no if you don't.
I do.
Okay, who is it?
She is Lady Mary Wortley. Is that her name?
Yes, Montague, because she's Lady Mary Wortley and she's married to Lord Montague. Okay. Why is she laughing at the man who looks very unhappy?
Well, because he's a very, very short, unimpressive looking man, but he has an incredible wit. And they knew each other through social circles and writing. And he was infatuated with her. When she found out, she laughed at him.
Oh, he doesn't look very happy,
does he?
And then he
made her famous.
But they were friends, don't you know? And Lady Mary is otherwise famous. I can't remember whether we've talked about this on stream, right? Lady Mary, oh my gosh, was a great letter writer. She was a great travel raconteur. And she has a series of letters that she wrote in 1717, 1718, when she and her husband, whom she was still infatuated with, she has affairs with other people later, but not the man in the picture. When Montague and takes her along with him and their first child, and she has another one there. She has the first, their son inoculated against smallpox, so she's the reason, and she's the reason that we have the vaccine arguments that we have now. So thank her for that too. And her daughter Mary is born there, I think. Anyway, they go to Constantinople, and she writes letters back, some of them to Alexander, her friend here, talking about how amazing it is to be in the land of Homer. Okay, it's Constantinople under the Ottomans. Sorry, right? But and 1717, 1718, Lady Mary accompanying her husband on the way to Constantinople. I mean, her descriptions of the baths at Adrianople are great because, like, painters love painting those because she gets to paint naked women. And she spends all of her time saying, "Oh, and they were so amazed, and they wondered how I could breathe with my corset." And she does seem to, over the year, learn a little bit more of the language and start realizing maybe her imagination wasn't what it was when she first got there. But there's a series of the letters where she is absolutely convinced that she's dropped back in time. And she has dropped back in time to, she sees in the peasants that are living there in, Greece, they travel from Vienna through Hungary, which is ravaged by the wars that have been happening there, through Thessaloniki, Salonika, Adrianople, Constantinople. Now I've lost. Anyway, she's absolutely convinced that the people that she sees out there in the countryside, even though many of them are Muslim, not all, the Christian, she hates the icons, by the way. She thinks they're ugly. So her ability to like appreciate art is a little conscripted by her Anglicanism. She's convinced that all of the peasants that she sees must be living exactly as they were in Homer's time. 2,000, 3,000 years ago, right? It's the unchanging past, which has been through, I don't know, Alexander's conquests, the Roman conquests, the survival of the Roman Empire as the Byzantine Empire, which is Christian during that time, the attacks on the Byzantine Empire by Islam, and the conquest of that empire over the Middle Ages, the fall of Constantinople in 1453 to the Ottomans, who have been in charge of the region for hundreds of years by the time she visited. Oh no, but it's still exactly the way it was in Homer's day.
She must have been thinking, oh, how quaint. Everyone's so quaint here. It's so simple and better, so much better. She sounds a lot like college freshmen who go to Europe for the first time and come back and just can't stop raving about it.
She's about the right age too. She's
yeah.
she's I think she's a little older than a college student, but she has exactly that. And of course, because she's very learned, and one of the reasons that Alexander at that point is friends with her, she does write decent poetry. I have various books around me, but I can't reach the one where I have some of her verses in it. She can write poetry, and in her letters her letters to her friends are quite fun because she talks about the fashion and how ugly the art is, except for this peasant stuff, and how the pasha whom they stay with in Adrianople is so interested in her knowledge, her wanting to learn his language, and they write love poetry together. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is she so naive?
Yeah.
Here are some love poems that I had him he translated for me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, can you see yourself, lady? That she's writing
no self-awareness.
No, she's writing to Alexander at that point, and sharing verses with him, and enjoying the fact that she does have a command of a lot of languages, and she's not, unfortunately, not terrifically pretty at this point because she's had smallpox. So her face is scarred. She's shown much prettier in this painting than I think she was in real life. The painters did the photoshopping in those days. So when her version of what was going on in Greece at the time has these, already 100 years before the Romantics, have all of these layers of, I want to be back in that story. I want to, hey, what did Nolan just do? I want to make it as if it's alive now.
Well, it's like the series Outlander. That's the entire thing is based upon a woman, basically, or like somewhere in time, people wishing themselves literally physically back into the past because they want to live there instead of their current situation.
Yes. And Lady Mary figured that she could do it reading poetry. And, that if I can read Homer, I don't know that she knew Greek, though. I'm not positive.
Very surprised.
Well, the thing is, so she can read Homer, and there are translations of it out there already. So, she's just like every tourist. I've done it. I went to Greece. I wanted to start learning Greek. You go to the place you're visiting, you start picking up some of the language. That's great. She does it. She has these learned friends at home, like Alexander, who she writes poetry back and forth to. And of course, he thinks that she likes him and is friends with him. And of course, as this painting demonstrates, that she mocked him. She comes back from this trip, and it becomes very famous because instead of being, enchanted by the great poetry that he can write her, she laughs at him because he's ugly and deformed.
She laughs at him because he's ugly. With her smallpox scarred face.
Yes, okay. I know it's a bit much, right? He's ironic. I think he had a spine deformation, so he was actually deformed, right? He couldn't stand up straight. This painting is also doing him some favors because he's making him a little bit less dwarfish.
Well, he's wearing black and seated in a black chair, and so it's a lot of masked.
But he had his revenge on her calypso-ness, right? Okay, so we've already gone back and back and back. And you're saying people are using Homer for all sorts of reasons to imagine all sorts of realities that I mean, are not in their version of things always historically accurate. We're doing it again, right? Every single one of these historical accuracies is a forgery. I mean, I can forgive Nolan for doing Rap and Dad because, okay, 30 years from now, it's going to be ridiculous, even if it's not already ridiculous, because it's going to be so dated, right? You can look at it and say, that's from 2026, of course. It's not going to have the.
I think the ridiculousness will transcend time.
You're going to be laughing at him like she's laughing at here. This picture of Casey laughing at Nolan, right? Right? Okay. Yeah, so we're still at the point where my big question is, why is Nolan and the surveyor DeWitt, who named those towns in Ithaca, and these painters who have these, they think it's worthy, realizing exhibiting a painting in the Academy was a big deal, right? It's like getting your Hollywood release movie in the day, right? So having these massive mythological story paintings, everybody thinks that Homer is like the one that if you want to show you can do art, you're going to use. Why?
No idea.
The guy that she's laughing at, the guy in that painting.
Because of Pope?
Because of Pope. Right.
Why?
And this is what's so interesting about Pope's translation of the Odyssey. There you go. That's it. That we spent a whole hour getting to that point because nobody was going to listen to me just saying, why we think the Odyssey is so important? It's because of Pope. And all of you all would say, who's that? Right?
Well, I wouldn't, but
okay, look. Okay, come on, play with me here. Pretend.
Okay, sorry. Who's Pope?
Who's Pope? That? Pretend we haven't been writing off of his poetry for. We actually had a comment. I'll have you know, fan moment on my X account today from none other than Tony Easelin. So there, it was.
Oh, that's nice.
My little comic about her making fun of him, thinking, "Oh, Mister, what did I have her say in that comic?" That I gave her. I rediscovered my comic maker.
Yeah, it was cute.
And she's saying, "You think anybody is?" Oh, wait, she would have to be high. She's high society and very wealthy, and I can't do that accent. You think anybody is going to remember your poetry? Don't make me laugh. And he's thinking to himself, "A little learning is a dangerous thing." You all know that phrase, right?
Yeah.
I can't reach it. After Alexander Pope. After Shakespeare, Pope is the most famous source of sayings in English. Want to hear one? He inspired this. Ready? This is actually what I thought we were going to talk about today, but then Odyssey came out in this movie, and I'm like, oh, wait, no, there's a better story in the backstory. Okay. Yeah. You think you don't know Pope, right? You do know, okay, the little learning is a dangerous thing comes from the essay on criticism. And it is, where is it? I had us read essay on criticism. Okay. Everybody knows this. You know it. You know that you don't know it, but you've heard this. And it's also like the cautionary tale of the Mosaic Ark, right? Okay. A little learning is a dangerous thing. Drink deep or taste not the Pyrean spring. Their shallow draughts intoxicate the brain, and drinking largely sobers us again. Fired at first sight with what the muse imparts, in fearless youth we tempt the heights of arts. While from the bounded level of our mind, short views we take, nor see the lengths behind. But more advanced, behold with strange surprise, new distant scenes of endless science rise. So pleased at first the towering Alps we try, mount o'er the vales and seem to tread the sky. The eternal snows appear already past, and the first clouds and mountains seem the last. But those attained we tremble to survey, the growing labors of the lengthened way. The increasing prospect tires our wandering eyes. Hills peep over hills, and Alps on Alps arise. Cautionary tale to all critics. You think you know everything because you just read it. But guess what? There's more. But there's an even more famous turn of phrase that Pope, although he's not the immediate author of it, is directly responsible for this turn of phrase because people were reading him. I'm sure you can name this one. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Oh. Right, now I will credit this. This is Judy Hotchkiss's The Right to Pursue Happiness, and I heard her speak in a Promethean Action Saturday class video that came out last week, how Leibniz and Bolingbroke shaped America's founding vision. That her big argument, go look at the Promethean Action videos, her big argument is that this pursuit of happiness is actually from Bolingbroke, the philosopher, from Leibniz, and it's in opposition to the Lockean argument about life, liberty, and property, purposefully, that the pursuit of happiness is at the root of the American optimism that we have, like the feeling that we have of there is such a thing as, that we live in the best world possible because it's God's, governance that gives us this, and maybe we don't see how well everything's going to be playing out because of our local sorrow, like, I don't know, the fog that's over Chicago right now, the smoke. But in the larger pattern of things, it's actually the best of all possible worlds. And that is what we are pursuing in writing this Declaration of Independence, according to Thomas Jefferson. He got that from Pope, who had been reading Bolingbroke and writing in his essay on man, which we're going to talk about next time, about this vision of the happiness that Pope himself had learned from Bolingbroke. Okay.
So our Declaration of Independence is Catholic.
Yep. Because Alexander Pope was Catholic, and yes, no, it's hilarious and joyous, and she has a chapter in here on how it's Pope, why you can know that Pope is in the background of all of these things. So she gives, she says, although few Americans today recognize Alexander Pope by name, one would instantly recognize his frequently quoted lines. In fact, according to the Oxford Dictionary of Quotations, Pope is the third most quoted writer in the English language, surpassed only by Shakespeare and Tennyson.
Wow.
Yeah, right. We just quote him all the time, and we don't know he's there. And
yeah,
it's like
doing it.
And this God and nature's man language, it's not deist, it's Catholic. I just love it, right? Examples of Pope's most recognizable lines that Hotchkiss gives: fools rush in where angels fear to tread, to err is human, to forgive divine is divine, hope springs eternal, a little learning is a dangerous thing. And what's really important is that when he put this philosophy into, among other things, his essay on man, which was published in 1734, and that he did it on purpose in poetry. And we're going to talk next time about like why he's doing it in poetry and what he thinks about that, and more some of the actual like groundedness of it. But the proof that this declaration, the opening sentence in the Declaration of Independence includes this phrasing, laws of nature and of nature's God, is echoing Pope's through nature up to nature's God. He's Jefferson. And that she also has proof about how Jefferson like had a full set of all of Pope's works. Thomas Jefferson owned a 9-volume octavo set of the works of Alexander Pope, which he inherited from his mentor and friend George Wythe. Jefferson in turn gave this set to his daughter Martha Jefferson Randolph. As a student, Jefferson had so thoroughly studied Pope that he notes in his student notebook specific variants from Warburton's edition as compared with earlier editions. Later, when he was president, Jefferson told the famed British actor John Bernard that Shakespeare, as well as Alexander Pope, quote, gave him the perfection of imagination and judgment, both displaying more knowledge of the human heart, the true province of poetry, than he could find elsewhere. So,
quite the compliment.
Right. And the, I think I wasn't able to verify on the basis of my extensive Grok searches, whether the surveyor who named those towns in New York was reading Pope as such, but Pope's, the reason that Lady Mary wanted to be friends with Pope was he was in the right set and he was famous. But it was, in fact, his translations of Homer that made him rich. There had been previous translations of Homer, like Chapman's, but Pope's was the one that everybody read. It was one that everybody bought, and it was a bestseller in the colonies. So it's like,
oh, interesting,
right? That I just learned this recently, and like we've been using Pope because we heard the Dunciad was funny, and so we read it and we wrote centrism games.
His citing is, I mean, his satire is really funny. It's really good,
right? But what's funny is, okay, I'm chastising myself in the first part of our show tonight because I didn't realize this, right? Oh, Homer is popular, right? Oh, we've got these place names, that are about Troy. And I think, well, of course Homer's popular. Homer's popular because of Alexander Pope.
Now, why was his translation so successful, more so than Chapman's?
Well, you read the big introduction. What does he say?
I read it very quickly today while trying to make notes.
I know, but I say you spent the time to really study it, and so the introduction that you got, if everybody goes to the Project Gutenberg version of this thing, you'll find this introduction that Casey was reading. What does he say? What does your guy talk about?
Well, I don't remember him specifically.
Just what did he talk about? It doesn't matter. I don't think
mostly
he liked popes. He wrote a long introduction to Pope. Why did he like Pope?
Well, he must have liked Pope. Yeah, because he wrote a long introduction to it. I am not organized. I am not a professor. I'm sorry.
I'm going to get you there eventually. Look, he starts. Skepticism is as much the result of knowledge as knowledge is of skepticism. Good opening. Very Popian. To be content with what we at present know is, for the most part, to shut our ears against conviction, since, from the very gradual character of our education, we must continually forget and emancipate ourselves from knowledge previously acquired. That's actually smart. We must set aside old notions and embrace fresh ones, and as we learn, we must be daily unlearning something which it has cost us no small labor and anxiety to acquire. That's actually a good opening. Okay, so having unlearned things that you thought you knew, what did you learn?
What did I learn of this introduction?
From the introduction. I don't want you to wasted your homework. Come on.
Okay. Oh gosh, she's just.
I'm giving you a chance to show off.
But that's okay.
You made notes.
Show off. Look, I made notes. I didn't really know what to expect in the introduction. He spoke mostly about how you could tell it was legitimate, and I thought that was kind of important for what's about to be unleashed onto the world in about a week in this premiere.
The premiere's tonight, isn't it? I think it.
Oh, I thought it was in a week. Okay, yeah. I may be wrong.
It's already happened.
It's already happened. Oh no! But anyway, he spoke mostly about how you could know it was a good translation, what happened, what might have happened when it was translated to the written word, which happened a long time ago, bought on papyrus. Which brings me to our previous point in our discussion tonight. Was it just a nationalistic movement? Maybe for Western Europe, yes, but maybe not in Greece. The Greeks would have to have remembered this because it was written on papyrus. It doesn't last a long time. So it would have had to have been the first time it was written down, I'm talking about. It would have to have been written and copied over and over again, or more likely recited. And I think that's what the author of the introduction's point was. Is that it was recited an awful lot, and there's an awful lot of detail in there saying that it's very likely to be in a period, in the like in 500 BC, based upon the things that are mentioned, and small things like clothes that people are, the type of clothes that people are wearing, the type of conversations that they're having. This has a lot to do with how you study. I think you had a word for it. It's something to do with linguistics, but it's not linguistics. It's something else. But it's
philology.
Philology. Thank you. You can tell a lot about where something came from based upon, even in translation, based upon what they're writing about. And I learned about that in a class in college called The Bible as Literature, right? It's not as bad as it sounded, actually. She was talking about how you can trace the origin of certain things, passages, just by what's said, even in translation. I'm not sure I'm making a terrible lot of sense.
No, these are good points. And what you're telling me is that our introduction guy, whose name we did find out who he is, Theodore Alois Buckley.
Buckley, yes, we should remember Buckley.
Christchurch. Like he's in England.
Yes, yes, he's an interesting guy.
He could be in New Zealand. Okay, you looked him up. Who is he?
No, I looked him up. He was born one of 10 children, very poor, self-taught. He was granted entry into Oxford under a certain special position they give poor kids, that you could work your way through it. So
was he called a scholar then? Was he, because those are the fellowship kids?
It wasn't a fellowship. It was something different.
Okay.
Actually, this word, I wish I could remember. It made it into Guy Ritchie's production of Young Sherlock. It's a really fun series we've been watching because Moriarty, when you first meet him, he meets Sherlock. Sherlock's been kind of screwed over by his brother because his brother's trying to whip him into shape because he's just being a ne'er-do-well. And he says, "Oh, I'm going to Oxford." And he finds out he has to work when he gets there.
Right.
They had a certain name for that, right? So he had to work while going to school. So this is what Buckley did.
Okay.
And he eventually achieved what we call a master's today in English language, I think. So that makes sense. Mid 19th century, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he did the introduction for this, and it reads very much like a school paper, like he had read the Odyssey, and he's gonna give his opinion on what was popular discussion of the time, which was is how good is this translation, right?
Oh yeah, no, they were very concerned. Right. No, and Nolan's making a so I am going to try to calm everybody down and say Nolan's doing what those Academy painters were doing. It's a translation.
I think people would be less pissed off at him if he hadn't put some poor confused woman in the role of Achilles, because it sounds like a slap in the face to everybody who loves that character. I don't think it was just
it's Paige is not Achilles. Sinon, apparently
she's a Greek warrior. Apparently, I've heard that too, but I'm confused as to which male Greek warrior she's supposed to be. But it's kind of a slap in the face.
The one that warns them about the horse.
Yeah, and it feels like we're going to stick it to them. Well, we're going to laugh while they're pissed off, and then we're going to slap ourselves on the back and go, "Aren't we clever? Here's an award." And I don't like that. I don't like that kind of manipulation. Casting Zendaya as Athena, I have no problem with that. I don't know what everybody's problem is. The time, that's another thing you learn from the introduction. The time that these were written down, they were written on papyrus, because it was the time at Athens, where it was first written down, was trading with Egypt. And they were getting those supplies from there. So they were not only trading in
papyrus.
Things,
say papyrus.
Right.
Say papyrus. Okay.
The
papyrus.
They not only
it grows along the Nile, right? It's a writing.
Yes,
it's a writing surface.
Right. They were trading in ideas. These people traded gods and they traded goddesses. And so one of the mythologies about Athena is that she came from Egypt. So if you want somebody who looks the part, she could totally fit in, right? Helen of Troy, I'm
more upset that she didn't read the book when she got the part.
Exactly. I said I'm more upset about her apparently terrible education at Yale than I am at this part.
She got the part in a really big movie and she doesn't read the book. Okay. And to say
that, but she's very cynical about it.
Okay. What's funny about that, Hansen talks about that in this interview. She says, Homer doesn't know much about women. And Hansen's just like, are you kidding me? This is entirely a story about women. It's Odysseus gets, the gods, he's insulted the gods. And so they send him on this, epic, not journey home. He gets captured by two of the most powerful goddesses characters, right? Calypso, the sea nymph, who imprisons him for 7 years, and Circe, who turns his crew into pigs. Meanwhile, his
fantastic commentary on the way bad men act too. This is a very pro-woman story in a lot of ways.
It is, and Penelope
really
manages to, preserve the home, their property for 20 years.
Not just her property, the kingdom.
The kingdom. Yes, the
safeguards it for his son.
Safeguards it for her son for 20 years with, all these locals trying to, marry the widow, right? And she refuses and manages to hold them off for. So Jonathan Pageau, I know, has done a version of the story saying it's that, it's homecoming and the man, coming home and taking, finding his way back to his wife and child, which is true, right? But it's also talk about strong women characters. How much stronger do you want them?
Every single moment of this story is
not Helen, I suppose.
Before it begins, is driven by the actions or inactions of women.
Yes, because the goddesses are insulted, and so they play the discord throws the apple among the three goddesses, and Venus grabs it, and so she gets it to the fairest, and then they're all mad, and so she gives Helen to Paris, and then that makes the other goddesses mad, so they're helping the Greeks against the Trojans, right? The Greeks don't exist as a nation; they're a confederation of mad guys.
I would ask Homer, what do you think about the pool of? Oh, shut up! Oh, please!
Yes, we're upset about that, right? Stop writing all the strong women out, for goodness sake.
Oh my gosh,
okay, look,
dumb.
I've been doing this long enough. My instincts are right, even when I haven't done the background research. The oldest complete surviving manuscript of Homer is the Venetus A, Codex Marcianus Graecus 454, also known as Marcianus 822, a 10th century CE or AD, right? Codex of the Iliad held in the Bibliotheca Marciana in Venice. That's according to Wikipedia. Let's look that up. Venetus A is the more common name for the 10th century AD manuscript codex cataloged in the Bibliotheca Marciana in Venice. Blah, blah, blah. It's 10th century. It's the most famous manuscript of the Homeric Iliad. That's not the Odyssey. Okay, what's the oldest manuscript of the Odyssey?
It's the Iliad.
Okay, what's the oldest? It's going to be the same.
It's probably the same. But it brings up what we were talking about earlier. It had to have been recited as it was intended.
Don't go there. Oldest manuscript copy of the Odyssey. That's not why. It's not recited for 3,000 years and then copied down in the 10th century. There's no single oldest complete manuscript of the Odyssey as old as the Venetus A for the Iliad, but the earliest substantial surviving copies are medieval Byzantine from the 10th and 11th centuries, so they're fragments. So we know that it's older because there's papyrus fragments and some clay tablets, but the complete thing is in Byzantine manuscripts because it's the same thing that happens in the West with the Latin classics, that we have them because they're copied in the monasteries, as Hans has been writing about, right? It's like,
is the Odyssey copied in the monasteries?
Yes,
too?
yes, and that's why I'm saying these are all copied by Christians, right? You only have them because they're copied by Christians. They don't survive independently of Christian Byzantium. Christian Byzantium uses these. I don't have off the top of my head the same facility with the Byzantine sources I do with the Latin, but Byzantine rhetoric is based on the their classics, and they study it as school texts, right? But they're not going to be thinking of it as our national epic in the sense that the 19th century does. That's why it's always like, well, but they had it back in the past. Yes, of course they had it, but the layering of significance that we keep giving it changes.
No, I get that, but objectively speaking, it is Greek culture, and it was written by Greeks about how they lived and how they thought philosophically, how they thought about things. And they put this into these stories, some of which had some elements of truth in them, but they were mythologized. But it's their character in it. It's very much Greek culture, if not nationalism. It's very much Greek culture.
That's the kind of argument Lady Mary tries to make, right? That the character survives from antiquity. And historically, we know that they go through a lot between antiquity and the 19th century or the 18th century or now. So, I mean, Lady Mary, she thinks she has access to Greek antiquity and the Greek characters there. She hates Byzantine Christianity.
Because she went there and
But that's what they think they are. They think they're Christians.
I know.
And she finds.
Come on now. They probably don't think they're real Christians. Come on.
I know,
because they're not Anglican.
They're not Anglican, right? She thinks the icon.
It's funny she's writing to a Catholic saying this.
Indeed, right? She thinks the icons are bad paintings because they're not in the Renaissance or they're not in the full romance. Well, she's 100 years or so before those Academy paintings, but they're not in the full illusionary single point perspective style that the West has developed. They have the gold backgrounds and the icon style of rendering of the images, and people kiss them. And she specifically says in her letters, that this is idolatry. She has no regard whatsoever for modern Greek culture. Her own modern Greek culture is zero.
She has a fantasy in her head. She has a fantasy in her head that it should be like the ancient world, which sounds an awful lot like a lot of people. Gosh, there's a lot of people, men, writing about going back to pre-Christian European roots. And I'm like, why in God's name would you want to do that?
Yes, it's like great, that. Yes.
So it sounds like she's having the same kind of fantasies of, life in Eden before, that big meanie God kicked us out, and let's go back to that.
That's it. Exactly. So Zendaya, not Zendaya, who's it? Lupita, you're not new.
Lupita.
Sorry. Lady Mary got there before you did. It's that kind of fantasy that we're gonna just hop over.
The difference that Lady Mary had actually read the Odyssey, but go on.
Okay, that's a big difference. But we're just gonna hop over centuries of Christian history, centuries of movements of peoples, centuries of education, and the sort of re-rendering of stories and rethinking of what they mean. As I've mentioned offhand several times, right? Everybody in the West thinks wants a story that came from Troy. They've read the Aeneid, which is the Romans version of We Came from Troy, and the English have a We Came from Troy story. Geoffrey Monmouth's History of the Kings of Britain, which then Spencer writes into the Fairy Queen, so that becomes part of the modern English myth of who we are, which is, we're Trojans too. So they all want to be Trojans. They all want to find themselves in Troy, but which Troy, which version of their imagining themselves into Troy are they going to come up with this time? Now we've established, let me see if there's questions. Okay. The chat is having fun tonight. Oh, this one's good. Yes, VA. For goodness sake, Homer has a female character who's right, but nobody listens to, leading to destruction. And he does nothing for his female characters. Cassandra, I know her.
Yeah.
Right? Penelope preserves her virtue way better than her husband. True. I think it's... Okay, so I've got... what is his name? The Aussie whose videos I've been watching. I'm going to have to bring in my cast of characters from my YouTube watching. Who is he? I want to give him a shout out. Mark Gallagher. Mark Gallagher, who does the Aussie things. It's does it, he's doing all these, actually pointing out the dodgy stuff in the background of a lot of these stories. So, he's a good guy worth listening to. Does it really say, no, mate, does it really say that? And he's like, no, but it's heavily implied. I got to do it in his accent. I have not read the Odyssey properly in a very long time, so I don't know whether it actually says it. And I'm given my ability to miss these sorts of things when I was younger. It may be there, and I don't know. But my guess is that Odysseus sleeps with Eclipso. Does it really say that? Oh no, but it's heavily implied. We know, for example, that Aeneas sleeps with Dido and that she kills herself because he abandons her to go off to found Italy, or, Latium or whatever. So no, Odysseus is not faithful to Penelope as far as we know. I mean, he's sleeping with all these goddesses. So there you go.
I'm not sure male sexual continence was expected in the ancient Greek world. So that might not have been a mark against him.
It's mark for him, meant for me, but she, no. Okay, so Vea Boston. Interesting, the episode of her laughing was so notable to someone that got a painting. There was apparently, and we can probably research this better, a whole exchange of satirical poems against each other. They made it public. It's the...
Well, yeah, she's throwing her head back in this painting. It's really, she's having a hearty laugh at his expense. So yeah, it's a great painting to him.
But it's a famous, they made it public, right? It was like public tweets.
Yeah, it was a tweet war.
There was a tweet war. They had a tweet war. They started writing nasty poems about each other. No, seriously. Let me see if I can find it in the Pope.
We're so sophisticated today, though, aren't we?
Well, hey, Dad. I could rap with the best of them. Okay, and I can't find it in here. This is the Penguin Classics. It may be too low to include in the Penguin Classics version of things.
I think that might be the version I read years ago.
Yeah. We're gonna have to research this a little bit. We'll tell you next week. They made it public, right? So and she humiliated him. I think he declared his love for her, and she sent it, she carried it around the salon or whatever they had in England at that point, and everybody laughed. And because Pope was not physically handsome, she was pretty cruel. Okay, so right, so we have now established, I hope tediously and at incredible length, that there is a propensity to want to retell the story in one's own sense of importance, and that Nolan, I think, is participating in this. But the reason that the story has the importance that it does in English, including in the United States, including in our repertoire of what counts as high literature, is because of Pope's translation, because that's what Thomas Jefferson read. That's what everybody in the colonies had copies of. It's very, very widely read and quoted. And therefore, if we want to know which version of the Odyssey we should be putting on film, we should do compare and contrast, right? Okay. So the one that Nolan allegedly used is this one, which is Emily Wilson's Odyssey. You ready? We'll read
I'm not sure.
We'll read a little. Okay, you can. So Nolan wants to make his majestic Hollywood art Rothko cello production accessible. I don't even know what accessible means, right? What does accessible mean? It means, well, we'll find out. Okay, accessible means I don't have to think too hard to understand what the poem says. Yeah, is that? I mean, it's like. Okay.
It could mean that, or it could mean, modernized to the point of just having lost some meaning, which can happen in a translation anyways. I pointed out earlier, but I'm skeptical, let's just say.
Well, okay. Wilson is in fact a professor of classical studies at the University of Pennsylvania. Book 1, The Boy and the Goddess. I think that's her title. Yes. Pope calls it Minerva's Descent to Ithaca. Okay, The Boy and the Goddess. Tell me about a complicated man. Muse, tell me how he wandered and was lost when he had wrecked the holy town of Troy, and where he went and who he met, the pain he suffered in the storms at sea, and how he worked to save his life and bring his men back home. He failed to keep them safe, poor fools. They ate the sun god's cattle, and the god kept them from home. Now, goddess, child of Zeus, tell the old story for our modern times. Find the beginning. Shall I keep going?
Sounds like a children's book, but go on.
Are you enjoying? This is the one. If
it does sound like a children's book, I'm not trying to be insulting.
read anything, at least she should have read the one that her director was using.
Yeah.
I don't think this is like Yale level, but you know, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll keep going. All the other Greeks who had survived the brutal sack of Troy sailed safely home to their own wives, except this man alone. Calypso, a great goddess, had trapped him in her cave. She wanted him to be her husband. Oh yes, definitely heavily implied. Did it really say that? Oh no, but it's heavily implied. I think it just says it, right? Okay, sorry. When the year rolled round in which the gods decreed he should go home to Ithaca, his troubles still went on. The man was friendless. All the gods took pity, except Poseidon's anger never ended until Odysseus was back at home. But now the distant Ethiopians, who lived between the sunset and the dawn, were worshipping the sea god with a feast, 100 cattle and 100 rams. There sat the god, delighting in his banquet. The other gods were gathered on Olympus in Father Zeus's palace. He was thinking of fine, well-born Aegisthus, who was killed by Agamemnon's famous son Orestes. He told the deathless gods. This is absurd, that mortals blame the gods. They say we cause their suffering, but they themselves increase it by folly. So Aegisthus overstepped. He took the legal wife of Agamemnon, then killed the husband when he came back home, although he knew that it would doom them all. We gods had warned Aegisthus. We sent down perceptive Hermes, who flashed into sight and told him not to murder Agamemnon or court his wife. Orestes would grow up and come back to his home and take revenge. Aegisthus would not hear that good advice, but now his death has paid all debts. Is there a Zeus in the cast? One of the complaints I've heard is there's no other gods but Athena. Like, it's literally opens with the gods talking about how they're going to make Odysseus's life terrible because Poseidon's mad at him, and that Polyphemus is Poseidon's son is about, okay. Anyway, the things that Butler pointed out is all of this stuff that you actually should know is assumed by Nolan in the way he has the characters interact, but they never talk about it. So you are clueless, right? I mean, who are the gods, right? Why should we care about them? Athena looked at him steadily
that's why I let
and
them
answered,
out.
Father, he did deserve to die. Bring death to all who act like him. But I am agonizing about Odysseus and his bad luck. For too long he has suffered with no friends, sea all around him, sea on every side, out on an island where a goddess lives, daughter of fearful Atlas, who holds up the pillars of the sea and knows its depths. These pillars keep the heaven and earth apart. His daughter holds that poor unhappy man and tries beguiling him with gentle words to cease all thoughts of Ithaca. Calypso's trying to make him forget Penelope, right? But he longs to see even just the smoke that rises from his own homeland, and he wants to die. You do not even care, Olympian. Remember how he sacrificed to you on the broad plain of Troy beside his ships. So why do you dismiss Odysseus? I mean, that seems accessible, right?
Yeah,
maybe.
I would agree.
What's an interesting question is, like, would we care about this poem if that's the version of the poem that was at our founding as a country? This is the irony, right? Pope is actually at the founding of our country. Think about us as Americans.
Yeah, which is really interesting.
maybe
it's something I never knew.
Pope's Homer is in fact our national epic. Consider that.
Wouldn't go that far.
Well, but his is in English, so we can do that, right? And we British come from Troy, don't you know? Because Brutus was one of the it's in.
I'm sorry, I can't get past it. As you were reading that, and the word father popped up. It's a word Nolan didn't use. He used dad and daddy, and it's not epic. It just takes you out of the epic realm and puts you into long music video.
It is a long music video. That I'm absolutely certain on, because all of the movies that have been done in this mode that I've seen in the last few years are music videos.
Yeah. Sorry.
Which maybe people enjoy. I don't know. I mean, it's Wagner, right? It's like, maybe it's opera, right? In fact, Wagner, the Ring Cycle is the Nibelungenlied, but retold by Wagner. Apparently. I've listened to Wagner.
Well, it's very popular with people who like opera, and maybe Nolan will be very popular with people who like art house type movies in Hollywood.
Right.
But I don't think that's most people.
Well, because we want it to be what? What do we want this to be? I mean, he's made it
Epic.
majestic and epic. Well, the dad part, so it sounds like
It's not just that. I've seen pictures of what are, I don't know what they're supposed to be. They look like giant fat robots, like rejects from a Peter Jackson movie, like trolls in armor or something. What is that?
Trolls in armor.
It just looked odd.
Well, maybe
Things that take you out of the story are not good.
It could be
visually when you're on screen.
Maybe he's looking at too many Turner paintings right here. Apparently Turner is directly inspired by Pope's translation, and this is apparently Odysseus's mocking Polyphemus, but I can't find Polyphemus in this picture. It just looks like the smoke that we had over Chicago yesterday.
Well, yeah, you showed me that one, and it was you can actually, if you look really closely, there's one of the masts that are, I guess is on the end of the boat because they're rowing away. There's a bunch of men climbing up, and I can picture them yelling at him, like mocking him, like flipping him the bird, whatever they do in ancient Greece, as they're going away.
Well, see, this is the thing. I mean, it's a funny story. It's an adventure story. It's given philosophical gravitas because it's about the gods, punishing Odysseus for not giving them proper honor. So there's a theological claim there. But the adventure level, the monsters and the sirens, and it's
that's what's wonderful about it, among other things. Yeah, it's for the film. Yeah, it's a treasure trove of images you can use that advance the story, that it can excite the people watching it.
But maybe that's just what it is. It's a monster story. I'm so irritating, aren't I?
Nolan's irritating. Hollywood's irritating. It's not just him. I've seen some of his films, and some of them are very good. Some of them are very bad. It's a real crapshoot with him. But I'm more annoyed with Hollywood promoting things as rage bait and then slapping themselves on the back for it. And they've been doing this for a long time. It's not just this film. They've been doing this for a while, and it's irritating. As somebody who enjoys watching film, it's just super irritating.
Right, but what Butler is saying is it's not even a good story, right? He's somehow managed to take one of the great adventure stories of human literature and make it dull.
That's hard to do with the story, I got to say. It really is. That takes work.
Well, why go? It's like, and he wants it to be, again, I've been just like, he wants it to be high art, along with the dad. But the thing is, it sounds to me like the dialogue is dumbed down, frankly, and stripped down.
Like, so when you,
and he's like, doesn't spend they don't spend very much time talking at all.
When you started reading from it, I said it sounds like a children's book, and I don't mean that as an insult. But yeah, if you wanted to read it, and I would never do that, I would just read the original, Pope translation to a child and explain anything they didn't understand, because most children can learn way more than they're given credit for. They're given no credit. In fact, they're given negative credit for their ability to understand complex stories and learn even archaic words. They can do that. But if you didn't want to do that and you wanted to really read this translation for an older child, yeah, it sounds fine. Nolan took that concept and dumbed it down even further from what I've read.
Well, this is the version that Thomas Jefferson enjoyed. Let's read a bit. Same passage that I read. This is from Pope's. The man, for wisdom's various arts renowned, long exercised in woes, O muse, resound, who when his arms had wrought the destined fall of sacred Troy and raised her heaven-built wall, wandering from clime to clime, observant strayed, their manners noted and their states surveyed. On stormy seas unnumbered toils he bore, safe with his friends to gain his natal shore. Vain toils, their impious folly dared to prey on herds devoted to the god of day. The god vindictive doomed them nevermore, men unblessed, to touch that natal shore. O snatch some portion of these acts from fate, celestial muse, and to our world relate. Now at their native realms the Greeks arrived, all who the wars of 10 years long survived, and 'scaped the perils of the gulfy main. Ulysses, soul of all the victor train, an exile from his dear paternal coast, deplored his absent queen and empire lost. Calypso in her caves constrained his stay with sweet, reluctant, amorous delay. In vain, for now the circling years disclose the day predestined to reward his woes. At length his Ithaca is given by fate, where yet new labors his arrival wait. At length their rage the hostile powers restrain, all but the ruthless monarch of the main. But now the god remote, a heavenly guest, in Ethiopia graced the genial feast. A race divided, whom with sloping rays the rising and descending sun surveys. There on the world's extremest verge revered, with hecatombs and prayer and pomp preferred, distant he lay. While in the bright abodes of high Olympus, Jove convened the gods. The assembly thus the sire supreme addressed, against this fate revolving in his breast, of whom young Orestes to the dreary coast of Pluto sent, a blood-polluted ghost. Perverse mankind, whose wills created free, charge all their woes on absolute decree. And all to the dooming gods their guilt translate, and follies are miscalled the crimes of fate. When to his lust Aegisthus gave the rein, did fate or we the adulterous act constrain? Did fate or we, when great Atrides died, urge the bold traitor to the regicide? Hermes I sent, while yet his soul remained, sincere from royal blood, and faith profaned, to warn the wretch that young Orestes grown to manly years should reassert the throne. Yet impotent of mind and uncontrolled, he plunged into the gulf which heaven foretold. Here paused the god, and pensive thus replies Minerva, graceful with her azure eyes. O thou, from whom the whole creation springs, the source of power on earth derived to kings. His death was equal to the direful deed, so may the man of blood be doomed to bleed. But grief and rage alternate wound my breast, for brave Ulysses still by fate oppressed. Amidst an isle around whose rocky shore the forests murmur and the surges roar, the blameless hero from his wished-for home a goddess guards in her enchanted dome. Atlas her sire, to whose far-piercing eye the wonders of the deep expanded lie. The eternal columns which on earth he rears end in the starry vault and prop the spheres. By his fair daughters the chief confined, who soothes to dear delight his anxious mind. Successless all her soft caresses prove, to banish from his breast his country's love. To see the smoke from his loved palace rise, while the dear isle in distant prospect lies. With what contentment could he close his eyes, and will omnipotence neglect to save the suffering virtue of the wise and brave? Must he whose antlers on the Phrygian shore with frequent rites impure avowed thy power, be doomed the worst of human ills to prove, youth unblessed, abandoned to the wrath of Jove?
That is epic.
That's epic. That's what Thomas Jefferson liked.
Yeah. Number one, that is epic. And number two, I totally get the introduction even more now. This needs to be read aloud.
Okay.
It needs to be read aloud with a lot of emphasis, because if I were reading this to a child, and I'm thinking 8, maybe, right?
It is a boy's story. I mean, there's a lot of boy-like adventures here.
Right. And I loved adventure stories too. I really did. If you're reading this, you can read it with emphasis. You can emphasize certain things, and they can get it through context. And, you can explain to them, who Atlas is, for instance, or, or what some of these more archaic words mean. But it's meant to be performed. It's meant to be read out loud. It's like Shakespeare. You can read Shakespeare and appreciate the beauty of the words, but it's nothing like reciting it or hearing it recited well.
But I read the other one out loud.
Yeah, I know. I'm still awake, so there's that.
Well, what was missing?
What was missing? What was missing was an epic vision.
Okay.
It was just it was a recitation of some facts instead of a bold introduction to a world, which is what the second one sounded like. It sounded epic.
I mean, Pope gives us that feeling, right? That's what we want from.
That's why he is who he is, or was who he was. Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, if everybody has never heard of Alexander Pope until tonight, and we're saying, look, he's not only behind the Declaration of Independence, he's behind your entire conception of the magnificence of this story. I suspect there's going to be like questions. And I'm now curious about this, thanks to Hotchkiss's insight, that there's where do we get our feeling for our own culture? Well, a lot of it's Pope, right? We're reading Shakespeare, Tennyson by the 19th century, but Shakespeare and Pope, Shakespeare and Pope, Shakespeare and Pope. So we have, and this is what you and I and the others of our group in Mosaic Ark and in Dragon Commentary have been saying for 6 years now. One, ironically for us, we started with Pope, and my favorite is this is at the beginning of the essay on man in the book. My favorite of all of Pope's poems, which I would be more effective at if I had memorized it, which I have, but I can't remember it right now because I'm tired. He apparently gave a dog to the Prince of Wales. Epigram, engraved on the collar of a dog, which I gave to His Royal Highness. I am His Highness' dog at Kew. Pray tell me, sir, whose dog are you? Considering that everybody who'd like to see that poem would have to look down and read the dog's collar, and now you're there, right, in the royal palace.
You're in the know.
You're there in the royal palace, and the dog's collar is just said you're somebody's dog, right? Who do you belong to? Who do you answer to? Who are you loyal to? And Pope, he's Catholic in a period when it ain't good to be Catholic, right? It's especially after, I don't know, George I becomes king and the Hanoverians are now in power in the palace. And when does George I become king? Somebody. All of these things matter because it affects their lives very intimately.
Early 18th century?
It's early 18th century, but it's got to be like, we got to be time.
I don't have a date.
Yes, it's so the 1715. He actually publishes his Iliad. This is good. I've got the chronology now. He publishes the Iliad before Lady Mary makes her pilgrimage to Compostela, Constantinople. 1715, first volume of Iliad translation, funded by subscriptions paid by wealthy purchasers. Same year, infatuation with Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, soon to become an enemy. After failure of a Jacobite rebellion, so the Stuarts, right, intended to restore the Stuart monarchy, legislation further restricts Catholic rights. In 1716, in response to the anti-Catholic measures, the Pope family moves to Chiswick, close to London. And its father dies the next year. 1718, with the money that he gets from the Iliad translation, Pope leases a villa and garden of 5 acres at Twickenham, where he will spend the rest of his life, and moves there with his mother. Okay, so in all of this, Pope, as a Catholic, is in a very precarious political and social situation because Catholics are suspected of being potential rebels, thanks to the Jacobite efforts to not be under the hand of. Well, they go to I was reading about this in the 7 Years' War book, because the 7 Years' War is a lot of playing out of the fact that the Hanoverian, the Georges have properties in Germany, in Hanover, and they always are using their English armies to try to keep hold of those. And that gets, in the 7 Years' War, that gets them embroiled in all this stuff on the continent, as well as the stuff in the colonies. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. You had a question.
I was just curious. I don't know if you know the answer. Why would a Catholic and his Catholic mother move closer to London, closer to the seat of power that was making the anti-Catholic laws? Wouldn't they be under even higher suspicion?
I don't know enough about this. I need to read more about. I have my colleague Steve Pincus's book on 1688, and what happens in 1688 is a very conscious effort by Parliament to not have the kind of modernizing Catholic government that James tries to institute. So the Glorious Revolution is to prevent a Catholic administration, but it's not just Catholic; it's also the kinds of administration that James learned from France. Pope is friends with Bolingbroke, which is clear in the essay on man because he dedicates it to him. Bolingbroke is in exile in France, and that's how he knows Leibniz. we need to learn more about all of this, right? Because it means all of our history is tangled up in, guess what? The same guy who wrote that collar's inscription for the dog. Whose dog are you?
Whose dog are you? Well, you have to be in the know to be close enough to see the collar. Exactly. And then when you do, it hits you.
You're here. Right? You're here. Right. So exactly, you know, like, whose dog are you? And that's a huge question in the 18th century. And that's, you know, our revolution is all caught up with that. Are the colonists going to continue under these Hanoverian kings?
The Promethean ladies are want to say that, you know, the American Revolution is still ongoing because it was subverted in the late 19th century. And when you say all of this is tied up with Pope and Bolingbroke and Leibniz in 1688, I'm reminded, well, okay, we just had our 250th birthday, our anniversary, our Declaration of Independence, which, as somebody pointed out, I don't know who, can't remember, is only 3 lifetimes.
They're long ones, yes, but it's not that long ago. Yeah,
they're long ones. Yeah, that's less than 100 years for each lifetime, right?
Correct.
Isn't it? We're going to 200 years, 250 years. Yeah. So yeah, that's 3 lifetimes. Think of 3 very old people.
Right.
Right. And if you could go backwards, very old person to very old person to very old person, and as of 2016, President John Taylor still had 2 living grandsons in Virginia, because he remarried. So he was born during the Revolution, and his grandchildren are still walking around right now.
Hamilton, the Hamiltonian American system that they talk about is a reader of Pope, right? This is Hotchkiss again. We see yet another example of Pope's influence when the adult Alexander Hamilton returned to the Pope when writing his Federalist paper number 68. Hamilton cites lines from an essay on man to bolster his argument for the use of the Electoral College for electing the president. Hamilton defers, although conditionally, to the authority of the poet. Quote, though we cannot acquiesce in the political heresy of the poet who says, quote, for forms of government let fools contest, that which is best administered is best. That's Pope's line. Yet we may safely pronounce that the true test of a good government is its aptitude and tendency to produce a good administration. That idea is Pope's. Mind blown, right? When I heard about that, we've been sitting on the answer in heart.
I'm going to enjoy repeating this to people who are want to say this is a Protestant nation. People who shall remain nameless that we're familiar with. Only a Protestant nation. Yeah, okay.
They're reading Pope, who's Catholic, right?
Who's Catholic. Yes. And one of the signers was a Catholic too, by the way.
What? So,
one of the signers was also a Catholic.
Yes,
an English
Charles
Catholic.
Carroll. He was actually the most wealthy person in the in the colonies at the point. What's funny about this? I highly recommend Fred Anderson's book on the 7 Years' War, which I'm reading right now. I'm at page 500, maybe. It's long. The more to get to the level of historical detail, you need to really start unpicking all of this stuff, because we've been so used to the generalizations that, one, that the 19th century creates to give us the nationalist visions that we have. We've lost the sense of how contingent and personal so many of these conversations were. And this is the fun of doing history at the true level, right? You get to the point where you're starting to say, okay, so they have this book and they're reading that, and he's at his party. Washington apparently gets a copy of Pope from a party that he crashes, and you end up with one, that it's a relatively small set of people that are involved in these conversations, and 2, we then tend to abstract them into, we make them our heroes, and we lose track of the actual details of how they got from A to B, from Troy to Ithaca. It didn't take just 3 hours. It took 10 years for a reason. What I noticed when I was reading those out loud, that it's very interesting. Jove is often used in 16th and 17th century English poetry to mean God. And they sort of classicize it, but they mean God, right? So whatever Pope is doing in this Jovian translation, but he said, perverse mankind whose wills created free. I don't think Homer says that. I'm guessing, right? Charge all their woes on absolute decree. All to the dooming gods their guilt translate, and follies are miscalled the crimes of fate. whose will's created free, right? What Wilson says is simply, this is absurd that mortals blame the gods. They say we cause their suffering, but they themselves increase it by folly. Both of them are playing some kind of theological game there, and we need to study more closely exactly what's going on, because for the most part,
free will versus predestination. Yeah.
Well, I don't know Wilson's theological basis. I do know she's trying in this translation to be more accessible, right? Pope is clearly not innocent of putting his own philosophy into the way he translates things. So,
well, the Anglicans never were against the concept of free will, I don't think. I think they remained very Catholic in a lot of their ideas.
Right. Well, when I'm reading Pope, I also checked this. Tolkien had these books. He knew them, right? And one of the things that I recognized, a word that Tolkien uses a lot, unnumbered tears unnumbered, is these battles that he describes in the Silmarillion. And I was like, unnumbered, that's a really weird locution, right? A lot that and you and I find this, and when we've been writing, everybody's been writing with us in the common room, have noticed this, that you're starting to, like, what the precision of the words, the vocabulary of the words. If Tolkien was when I read Pope, I hear Mythopoeia. I read Tolkien's poem to Lewis about the purposes of story and the purposes of myth, because Lewis and Tolkien are obviously reading all these great ancient epics and trying to figure out what to do with them in their own storytelling. But Mythopoeia is Tolkien's most Popian, Alexander Popian poem, because it's in iambic pentameter and it's rhyming, it's heroic couplets, which Pope writes in all the time. So that feel is there, and I'm like, I'm sure he's picking up stuff, because once you find a good word and it scans, you go back to it. Sorry, I forgot what else I was going to say. I need to read a lot of Tolkien's poetry in the next few years to really get into where he's coming from. This, whose will's created free, that feels to me like the kind of thing Pope says, it's the kind of thing Tolkien says, it's the kind of thing our founders said. All men created equal. We need to dig more into Pope, because I think a lot of the language that we live by is his.
It's a good year to do it. 250.
Happy birthday, America. You're living in the Odyssey already. Okay. So, well, that's as much time as we have now. What has everybody been saying while we've been... Okay. Gnarly Bird is having a conversation with John Brissy about... John Brissy, the French at the time who secured the American victory were Catholic. Yes, well, the 7 Years' War is very instructive on exactly how we end up with Canada or not. We're more Catholic than those Prots can handle. Well, I think we're more Popian. The lovely name, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We're more Popish.
Yeah.
We're
not Catholic, we're Popish.
We're Popish. How's that, right? We're Popish.
He would love that pun, wouldn't he?
He would totally. The author of the Dunciad would love that pun. We're more Popish than we ever realized, and what we want to do over the next few weeks, we got 2 more weeks in this season, technically, right? It's season 5 starts in August, right after a bit of a break in early August. Can you believe it? Can you believe that we've been doing this for so long?
No.
It's been a long journey. Hey, it took Odysseus 20 years to get home. We'll keep going, right? Here, I got how long? Why did it take so long to get from Troy to Ithaca? Well, you have no idea how long it took to chop all those trees down. That was one of the features in the 7 Years' War, was Forbes Road, like cutting his way through the forest to get from the river to the lake. That disturbed the trade routes and the transportation routes that the French had developed with it's not just the Indians, that's way more complicated, because the Iroquois are busy being the Aztecs and taking over everybody and then playing different sides off of each other. It's so complicated. But the thing is, what I realize now is all of these guys, Washington, Jefferson, DeWitt, surveyors of the United, it's not just neoclassical, it's Pope that they have in their mind.
That is really interesting. So they had Pope's translation of the Odyssey in mind when they gave these towns these names.
I think so.
That's fascinating.
They certainly have it when they're sort of, feeling like they want to be at the beginning of this story, for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they are definitely doing it when they are participating in this, heroic aggrandizement of a particular version of that story. These paintings are inspired by Pope because it was his translation that made these stories super popular. He made it.
Yeah. They look epic. They match his words well.
Right. He made it epic for them, for the English. So there you go. We're popes. Okay. Oh no. Report from the chat. Quinn says, audio is flawless. Kimberly's video is still desynced and looks like a wise telepath staring intently into the camera. Her words come through without her lips moving. Oh dear, we don't know what to do with this. We'll blame it on the smoke. We'll blame it on the smoke. And
that's hilarious. I said that to her last week. I said, I look like I'm telepathically speaking to you. It was pretty funny. Although, at least the audio was working. I hope is the audio working?
Well, I'm happy. I'm happy the audio is good. So the podcast version of this will be great. And at least we didn't drop this time, right? Which was happening last time. I
did everything I possibly could to make sure there was nothing on my end, including like rebooting and erasing everything and turning off every other electronic in my room. So I don't know what else I could do.
Well, I rebooted my laptop twice. So if I haven't cleared the cache, I don't know what else I need to do here. And yes, we'll blame it on the fires that are coming down from the north. Ithaca is burning. Anyway,
at this rate, we're going to be communicating by smoke signal. Tech is just not our friend this month.
Except we didn't, because the English reading Pope conquered the wilderness. Oh my gosh, we so many layers. We will continue on this popish meditation next time. If you liked our meditation on Nolan and you're new to us because we tempted you here with his notoriety, please join us again next week. We'll talk more about Pope, and we will convince you that poetry is the way to build civilization. Good night.
Good night.